y'all, I'm Cece, and I am here today with a haul because although my ability to read remains spotty, my desire for new books is as strong as ever. I want to say thank you so much to Disney Book Group for sponsoring this video. I have new books. I don't know what to say. I have to talk about the new books because there are a bunch that I'm actually very excited to tell you about. I've decided to go with something a little different for today, so I have split up all of my books into sections where I think books have similar themes, and I'm going to talk about them that way, and we're going to see how that goes. I feel like I'm doing things loosey-goosey, despite the fact that this is still, immensely organized. So I hope you're ready. I have a bunch of new releases, queer 2021 books that I really want to talk about, including some that are absolutely perfect for this time of year. If you're interested in fantasy or retellings or weird sci-fi and strange timelines, have a bunch of those. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in and talk about all of these new books. First little theme designation, of course, has to go to the two books that I'm going to tell you about first. These are both books that are by Rick Riordan or feature a story by him. I can't believe it. Thank you so much to Disney Book Group for giving me the opportunity to tell you about these books because genuinely blowing my mind a little bit. So to begin with, let me tell you about Daughter of the Deep. This is a brand new standalone fantasy book by Rick Riordan. So this is a book that reimagines 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in a modern setting. It's inspired by both the Jules Verne book as well as the Disney movie, so kind of have both of those themes going in there, but modernized. I think my history for retellings speaks for itself on this one, folks. A retelling by Rick Riordan. This follows a character named Anna who attends this 5-year school, Harding Pencroft Academy, which is a school that produces some of the world's best marine scientists, navigators, warriors. A few years back, Anna's parents died, and so now it's just her and her brother who's also attending the academy. But then Anna and her classmates go on this school trip at the end of their freshman year, and they wind up witnessing some stuff and are thrust into a whole new world that they had no idea about. Oh, the fact that my first dream job was to be a marine biologist, and this is a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea retelling. Perfect. I'm truly so excited to read this. And I also have The Cursed Carnival and Other Calamities. This is a short story collection edited by Rick Riordan. So this features stories about favorite characters from other Rick Riordan Presents books, as well as an absolutely brand new story featuring a brand new hero by Rick. Of course, I am always excited to read new content by Uncle Rick, but this also features stories from some other incredible authors, including Rebecca Roanhorse, Yoon-Ha Lee, Prashani Chokshi, and a bunch more. So, if you are also into big hero stories and you want to read about some heroes from other cultures, as well as celebrating some more Rick Riordan Presents authors, then definitely check out The Cursed Carnival, as well as Daughter of the Deep. They are both available now, and you can learn more about both of them if you check out the links in my description. So thank you again so much to Disney Book Group. Thank you to Rick for giving us new stories to read. And now, I think it's time to talk about sports books. So yeah, here's a weird one. I don't read about sports that often, but I would like to. I find sports movies extremely compelling, because I am easily emotional and they just get me every time. So I've wanted to read more sports books, and I feel like I've done a good job of getting all pink sports books. We Ride Upon Styx. Things I know is that it is set in the 80s. It's set in the town that is the place where, like, the original witch trials happened. And it's about a team of women who are, like, a hockey team? And they're willing to do anything to win. Even maybe tap into some magic. So this has been super highly reviewed. I thought it sounded fascinating. That's the one I know the most about, but I do have a couple others here. So we have Like Other Girls by Britta London. Honestly, I don't know that much about this, except for the fact that it is about a queer girl who plays football, and she's butch. Put more butch people in books, please. Please, I am yours. I am yours if you put butch people in a book. So this is about a girl who joins a football team, or tries to after she gets kicked off of a different sports team, and then a bunch of other girls think she's making a political statement, so they join her and try to join the football team too. Butch girl. Queer. These are the things. And then A Map to the Sun. This is one I just found, I think at a Half Price Books, and it was on clearance, but it is a graphic novel, and it has some of the most stunning colors. And this is about 5 super different girls who were all on a basketball team together, and the different kind of lives that they lead. This is one of the most gorgeous covers I'd ever seen. I'd never heard of this book, and when I saw it, I was like, have I been buying a lot of books about sports teams lately? I'm gonna lean into it. Next theme we got going here is retellings. These, actually, all 4 of them were sent by publishers, so that works out. First we have The Grimrose Girls. This is by Laura Pohl. This is about 4 reimagined fairy tale heroines who have to uncover things about ancient curses together. I know at least it has an Aro Ace protagonist, but there are 4 leads, and I think it sounds pretty cool, and I've heard cool things about Laura Pohl's book, The Last 8. We have a book that I am over the moon about, A Clash of Steel by C.B. Lee. This is a Treasure Island remix, so it is a retelling of Treasure Island. It is set in 1826 in China. I think this specifies South China, but I'm not sure how much of it is set there. But this is a queer Asian retelling of Treasure Island, and C.B. Lee is not only an incredible writer whose work I have loved in, like, Not Your Sidekick, the whole Sidekick Squad series, but also she's a friend of mine, and I'm just like, I'm so excited for her in this book. I can't talk about it anymore. The last retellings I have go together. So These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, and then its sequel, Our Violent Ends. This is a duology retelling of Romeo and Juliet set in 1920s Shanghai. I originally had a copy of These Violent Delights, but I wound up giving away that copy because they sent me a signed copy to go along with Our Violent Ends, and I was like, signed copy, please. So 1920s Shanghai, this is about 2 competing crime families who, like, they want to control the area they're in. Their only competitor is the other family, and then whoops, one person on each side of the family, they fall for each other. Our Violent Ends just barely came out, so I haven't heard a ton about it yet. Based on what I heard about These Violent Delights, it's going to be, like, heartbreaking and action-packed and full of a great romance and some cool criminals, and it sounds great. It makes me think of Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, and that is always a good sign. Next I have 2 books that I'm going to say are bonded by time weirdness. I bought both of these at Half Price Books, actually, so. Despite the time weirdness, these have very different vibes. The 2 Lives of Lydia Bird is about second chances and grief, and The Space Between Worlds is about a person who is useful in a world of multi-dimensional travel because you can't travel to dimensions where your alternate self exists, and her alternate selves are really good at dying, so she's an incredibly hot commodity. So multiverse sci-fi weirdness versus trying to get over a lost love and trying to grieve a lost love. The Space Between Worlds has a bi-main character, so queers in space, always a draw, and I've heard great reviews for both of these. Alright, now we have some middle grade. I'll talk about this first because it's kind of weird. The Reptile Room, or Murder, by Lemony Snicket. This is the second book in the Series of Unfortunate Events series. I own all of them already in hardcover. However, when I was in school, I did a semester where I studied in London, and I had an opportunity to go to Paris. And while I was in Paris, I went to, like, one of the book lovers places that you have to go to. That being Shakespeare and Company, because it is an English bookstore in the middle of Paris, and it's gorgeous. You know, I got the chance to go to Shakespeare Company, and I did, and I got a couple of books I'd never read before, but I wanted to get at least one book that I already loved, so I knew I would keep it forever. Because when you buy books at Shakespeare and Company, they stamp them. So There you go. And I didn't want to end up with a bunch of books I didn't like just so I could have a book with that stamp. So I got this copy of The Bad Beginning, or Orphans. I'm so entertained by their alternate titles. It was just an edition I had never seen before, and I thought it was great. And then I was out shopping at, I think, a Goodwill, and I saw this for $2 maybe, and I was like, maybe it's worth it to get a second collection of Series of Unfortunate Events if I happen to find them. I love the art on these. So I just wanted to give you some backstory for why I have this random copy of The Reptile Room, show off this, because I haven't talked about it in a while. And now I have. And then the other two middle grade books I have are both queer middle grade books. So we have a queer graphic novel, A-OK. This is about Jay, who has just started 8th grade, and he's starting to have a real issue with acne. And he's really confused because he isn't having the same feelings as the people around him. And he definitely isn't having the same feelings towards the boy and the girl in his class who both have expressed that they like him. So this is about growing up, figuring out who you are, dealing with your body changing hormonally, and realizing you're ace and what that means. I think the art style is really interesting. It's like fun and simple, but like I love the humor that is able to come across in a lot of their faces, and I love any chance to read ace books. So, ooh. I'm gonna have to move this stack in a second. And the other queer middle grade that I have is kind of a throwback. That is Better Nate Than Ever by Tim Federle? I'm trying to remember when this came out because I feel like this was one of the original queer middle grade books. 2013. So queer middle grade really is such a new thing. Get taken out of it sometimes. How new it really is. Because this was one of the only ones out there. This is about a kid named Nate who has always wanted to be on Broadway, but he's from this really small town in Pennsylvania. He doesn't see how it's ever going to be possible for him to have that Broadway dream, so him and his best friend decide to plan an overnight escape to New York to go to open casting for E.T., the musical. I literally had to validate that it was a musical. I was like, what if you're just making up that they're doing a production of E.T. the musical? This is just one of those books that I've heard is going to make me so happy, and it's just one of those books that it made waves. It was a big deal in the queer book community, so I want to read it. I have not stacked this well. I have to move it. Next, I have a couple of anthologies. I'm not going to focus on these too much because I've covered them in other videos. So we've got Beasts and Beauty, Dangerous Tales by Soman Chainani. I already had an arc of this, but they sent me a hardcover. So really, this could have gone in the retelling stack, but I wanted the opportunity to have a story collection stack, you know? But this is retellings of classic, like, fairy tales with a darker twist. And then Speculative Fiction for Dreamers, a Latinx anthology, is a collection of speculative fiction that is all about dreaming up new futures, new Latinx futures, and it is speculative fiction by up-and-coming celebrated Latinx authors. Alright, let's talk about some books that are good for this time of year. Some creepy mysteries. I know we're out of October, but like this whole time of year, I feel like I'm very invested in reading mysteries and horror and spooky things. Like, it's just the right time. So we have The City Beautiful. This is by Aiden Polidoros. This is queer Jewish historical fiction set in Chicago in 1893? There's some, like, super cool monster elements. There is the fact that this is tied in with the Chicago World's Fair and the very real serial killer that was committing crimes at the same time as the Chicago World's Fair. So I think this sounds so fascinating. I'm really glad that they sent me a hardcover because I very much want to read it. I also have a book that I've wanted to read for years, and I've just never wound up with a copy. Broken Monsters by Lauren Bukes. This was another half-price books find, and it has always sounded to me similar to the NBC show Hannibal. It just describes finding a very disturbing murder scene that has a lot of similarities to some of the scenes that they go to in the show Hannibal. And, like, it's such a specific, scary vibe that I've always associated this with Hannibal. I know that there's also specifically a detective point of view, so I was kind of like, female Will Graham, but in no way does this woman have to be female Will Graham in order for me to be interested. I just like Hannibal a lot. Oh, this is another half-price books find that I was blown away. So, Saloum Profer, I think that's how I want to say this. The title is not what drew my eye. For years, whenever you wanted Own Voices trans fiction, you would come up with like 3 authors, and E.E. Ottoman was always the first one on the list. But I never got the chance to read any books. And then I've also never seen an E.E. Ottoman book out in public, in the world. This is a Less Than 3 Press book. Those are usually like printed on demand, or they were when Less Than 3 Press still existed. I don't know. The number of things that aligned. But the point is that this is a super thin book. It's a novella. It's set in like a modern world that has totally intersected with the supernatural. It involves exorcisms, working for people to do like grunt spell work, and if sources tell me correctly, a butch romance. Sign me up. Next, The Girls Are Never Gone. This was sent to me by Penguin Teen, so thank you so much to them. It is a creepy, supernatural, queer book. Sapphic specifically. We're talking a girl who does not believe ghosts exist, despite the fact that she hosts a podcast about ghosts. But there's this local legend that has their interest, and she keeps investigating. But yeah, as she's investigating this haunted mystery, she ends up meeting a girl and hitting it off, and Sarah Glenn Marsh wrote, was it just a duology? I think it started with Reign of the Fallen, but it was a sapphic necromancy fantasy book. And that's always sounded amazing to me because I am inherently drawn to like the dark and the sapphic. So Sarah Glenn Marsh reading night, maybe? The last thing that I have that's for this time of year and is also kind of dark, you know, kind of creepy, is The Midnight Girls. This is about 2 girls who show up to try to win the heart of a prince, but not in a good way. They're gonna win his heart, and then one of them wants to consume the power of the heart for herself so that she can get more powerful, and one of them wants to take the power of the prince's heart and give it to her mentor. But then as the 2 of them keep trying to vie for the prince, they keep running into each other and they start falling for each other instead. I love it. I love a rivalry that turns gay, especially if there are queer women involved. And this is set during the time of year where they're always going to like wintry masquerades. And this comes out on December 7th. So in December, you can pick up a copy and it'll be perfect. Actually, I have another book that would be perfect for this time of year. It's not creepy at all, but I'm going to allow us to transition into the, like, romance, lighthearted section. So Blame It on the Mistletoe. I had never heard of this, but Sourcebooks sent it along with a few other books, and it turns out it's either a retelling of the holiday or, like, it doesn't specifically mention it on the back, so it's just inspired by the movie The Holiday. So it's about 2 girls who switch houses for the holidays, and then each of them find love. This is not my normal thing at all, except for the fact that The Holiday is one of my favorite movies. Like, it's not even that I love it, it's just that I've seen it so many times. I watch it every year, and you know what? I thought it'd be fun. I thought it'd be fun to have a book version. Other romance things, we have Love Creekwood. This is just a novella that is part of the Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda universe. This is set after Simon versus and Leah on the Offbeat, and it follows all of those characters later on in their life. Simon Versus is just one of those books that lives in my heart, and I actually really don't like Leah on the Offbeat at all, but I love The Upside of Unrequited, so like, give and take. I'm assuming I'm going to love this, and I will take any opportunity for more interactions with a couple of those characters. I finally have my own copy of Autobiography. Like, I've had a copy, and I have loved this copy. This is a bound manuscript edition of Autobiography, which is covered in tabs, and let me just tell you, I bet you every page of this book has been written on. because as a queer ex-Mormon, don't have words for the way that this reflects certain experiences. I wanted a finished edition, so I got a finished edition. It was at Half Price Books again. This is about a boy, a bisexual Jewish boy who moves to Utah with his family, Salt Lake City specifically, and then starts falling for the bishop's son, the Mormon bishop's son. This is a romance, but it is also it can be a much heavier book because it's very much dealing with, like, religious trauma and a character who has been raised to repress everything. But it's also lovely and so representative of so many things. If you want to know what Mormon Utah culture is like, and you've read autobiography, and you're like, that can't be... Autobiography just has so much meaning to me, so I'm really, really glad that I have a copy. And I have The Other Man. I actually had 2 copies of this. This is the finished paperback. They also sent me the ARC originally. I have no idea where it is. This is a gay male-male romance set in India. It is about a guy who is closeted. He is the heir to his father's Mumbai empire, and then this American businessman is in town, and he starts to fall for the guy. The main character's name is Ved. He agrees to an arranged marriage, and then as the arranged marriage preparations get into full swing, he realizes he's completely falling in love with this businessman. So I thought this sounded so cool and lovely, and I love that it is a queer romance set in India. I have so many queer wedding romance books to read. I really need to read them. Okay, so these 2 books I know almost nothing about, but I've put them into sci-fi weirdness and crime. So we have a book I bought myself, which is Autonomous by Annalee Newitz. I knew Annalee Newitz because of their book, The Future of Another Timeline, which is a lesbian time travel book. And then I saw this spine at Half Price Books. This bright green spine. It caught my eye from 2 aisles over, went over to check it out, saw it was by Annalee Newitz, and just bought it. This is set on Earth in 2044, and it is about a, like, pharmaceutical Robin Hood. I will say I've read reviews for this now, and it does have kind of, like, a divisive ending. A lot of people had issues with it. If you want to look into it, there's a ton on Goodreads that will give you more information. I don't know. I'll let you know when I read it. I thought it sounded really interesting. And then Base Notes by Laura Elena Donnelly. I didn't know anything about this, but it showed up, and I love Laura Elena Donnelly because she wrote the Amberlow, like, dossier series. Queer espionage set in a 1930s Berlin-inspired alternate world. Very cool books. Highly recommend. This is about a character who creates scents that evoke memories. So his clients pay him, he creates, like, something for them to smell, and it evokes a memory, but there is a cost. Crime must be committed, and so he's continually looping, like, struggling artists into his con, into his schemes. I just, like, if I'm interested in dark queer stories, one of the first people I think of is Laura Elena Donnelly, because Amberlow just was so different when I read it. So this is coming out in January of 2022. I have no idea when I'm going to read it, but it sounds fascinating. Okay, so next we have, these are pandemic books essentially, so we'll move through these quickly so that if you want to, you can read these, but if you don't want to, that's completely understandable. So, Any Sign of Life by Rae Carson is about a girl who goes to sleep and she wakes up. No way of knowing how long it has been, but everybody is dead. And it's just her and her dog. Like, this sounds interesting, and Rae Carson is a celebrated YA author, but I also think it's going to break me. And then The Dreamers, I have wanted to read for ages, and again, just never wound up with a copy. Now I have one. I was excited about this book before its release, so I was like, so excited to find this secondhand. Truly, the serotonin boost of going to a thrift store and being like, oh my god, the book I've been looking for literal years. The Dreamers is about a sleep plague, essentially, where there are some people in the world who go to sleep and they just don't wake up. And they don't die, they're just asleep. And what does the world do with that? Originally, this got compared to Station 11 in terms of vibes, and Emily St. John Mandel is one of the names on the cover, so seems like a good comp. Station 11 is one of my faves. Alright, last stack. I'm calling this the Bookstagram faves. So these are all books that I got myself at some point at either Half Price Books, Value Village, or Goodwill. And I probably know a few buzzwords about each of them, and that's about it, because they are some of Bookstagram's like most celebrated books, most hyped books, and I want to read them, but I don't want to know everything beforehand. So we have Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Nice to see Rebecca's name coming up twice in this video. So Black Sun is a fantasy book inspired by the civilizations of the pre-Columbian Americas. It is about 3 people whose lives converge during an eclipse. I also believe it's the first book in a series. The main character of this is bisexual. I read Rebecca's book Trail of Lightning, and there were so many cool world building elements. Like, that was my favorite element, was the world building, so I can't wait to jump into another expansive fantasy book by Rebecca. We also have The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I don't know if this is a Bookstagram fave. Maybe it is in my heart. I'm just so obsessed with the cover. Maybe I've inserted it into pictures over the years. I don't know. I did a piece of art last year. It was a stack of books that were like the books at the top of my to-buy list in 2021, and this was one of the books that I did art of, so let's say yes to manifesting that, huh? The City We Became is a expanded kind of version of a story that first popped up in N.K. Jemisin's collection, How Long Till Black Future Month, which I love. But that short story was about, like, cities and how they live through people, and people who become, like, avatars as protectors for their cities. Basically, there's a monster, it's going to invade New York, and there are 5 people from different boroughs who feel awakened by the city. I love N.K. Jemisin. I've loved both of her books that I've read, and the short story version of this that I got was my second favorite of the entire collection of How Long Till Black Future Month, so I feel like I'm going to love this book. We also have Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. I know that this is about a trial, and I believe about a mother who has maybe killed her son, but I've heard, like, it's one of those books that really forces you to think and is gorgeously written and just will break your soul a little bit. Sometimes I need that, you know? Sometimes I need that. Patsy by Nicole Dennis Benn. Feel like her name used to have a Y in it, and I haven't been able to kick the habit yet. I'll admit, I tried to read Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis Benn, and I couldn't quite vibe with it. Like, I kept picking it up and putting it down. Hopefully I'm gonna have more luck with Patsy. This is about a single mother from a small town in Jamaica who finally gets her coveted American visa, and she leaves her mother and she leaves her small daughter behind to go live this new life in New York. It's also about her discovering that she's queer and having a queer relationship. I've seen nothing but incredible reviews of this book, so fingers crossed that this one works out better than Nicole Dennis Benn's last book did for me, but regardless, I mean, look at this cover. Second to last, I absolutely stopped in the middle of the half-price books. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is like a new release. Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote, you may know, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six. Those are her 2 most popular. This is set in 1983 in Malibu, and if Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones are anything to go by, I'm gonna love this, because it's historical, and it's by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Done. And finally, the last book that I have for you is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. This is the sequel to The Poppy War. I absolutely loved The Poppy War. I listened to it as an audiobook. It was very special circumstances. I was in a car by myself for like 24 hours that opportunity is not going to rise again, and that's really the only opportunity I have to focus on audiobooks the way my brain is. So I knew I wanted a physical copy of the second book if I was going to continue the series, which I knew I was going to because I gave The Poppy War 4.5 out of 5 stars. If you like incredibly dark, like morally complex women, if you want an enemies to lovers romance. Do you like books about impossible decisions or academia? Everything The Poppy War did, it did exquisitely, and it kicked my ass a few times, but it was so worth it. And I've heard that this one is even better. So once I get over the intimidation of how long this is, I'm coming for you, Dragon Republic. And if I'm really lucky, that won't knock down this entire stack. Alright, all, that is it. Those are all of the books that I've hauled in the last few months, either purchased by me or sent to me by a publisher or an author. And a reminder that Daughter of the Deep and The Cursed Carnival are both available now in hardcover and audiobook, and you can get a copy of each of them and learn more if you check out the links in my description. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really, really appreciate it. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the way I group these books, or maybe which of them I should read first. Maybe just tell me about what you're reading in November. I feel like I haven't talked to y'all in a while. Other than that, just thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!